Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to episode 11 of the BookCast. And I'm here with Miss Dana Abercrombie. How you doing, Dana?
Hello, good day. Pip pip, cheerio.
Cheerio, cheerio. Um, yeah, we're back with another BookCast. Finally, I know sometimes we're not super consistent with it, but it's hard because we when reading books there's never like any set amount of time that it will take you to finish a book, and then we both have crazy schedules too, and other things that we're working on. So just expect this to come periodically. It's going to be roughly every month, but it might take an extra couple weeks or something like that, just so we have enough to talk about. But yeah, we're finally back. There are some things to discuss before we get into what we've been reading and what we want to read. Um, so the biggest thing that happened is PBS finally they aired the final episode of the Great American Read, and with that, there was they had the final result, and they named the number one book that everyone voted. Now this is a show that people participated in and voted. So this whole list of 100 books was voted by the people, and the number one book was To Kill a Mockingbird, a book I still haven't read yet. So, first of all, before we get into our thoughts on some of the books on the list and where they ranked, what's your thoughts on To Kill a Mockingbird winning, Dana?
Oh, okay. Um, I was slightly surprised. I was taken aback, but overall, I wasn't that surprised. I happened to be there during the final taping. So I knew in way in advance before you guys did what was the final book. And there was a lot of people who were very excited for this book. The thing is with me, and no offense to anyone who loves the book and the people who created it and I'm the author who is an amazing writer. The thing is with me, think it's a wonderful book, but it's not necessarily number one. Maybe in the top three, but not number one. So I had like a little issue with that. I had an issue with a lot of other books in there. But yeah, that's yeah, not number one.
Yeah, and just to give the people listening who may not have seen the list, so the top five is To Kill a Mockingbird is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is Outlander. Number
Hmm.
three is Harry Potter. Number
Hmm.
number four is Pride and Prejudice, and
Hmm.
number five is Lord of the Rings. So that those are the top five, books. What do you think of that top five, though?
I thought it was hilarious. I'm sorry. I thought that yeah, I just didn't agree with it at all. I was really surprised that 1984, Handmaid's Tale, and maybe a little bit of the War and Peace wasn't within that top five area. So I was very much taken aback by that, and I was in the audience, silently booing. Not necessarily, those books, but just the order that it was in. I did not see Outlander at all getting number two. I could would have had a bet with like $5 trillion, and I would have been sure that I would have won my $5 trillion, that it would not enter the top 20, but it did.
Mm. I'm just surprised, like, because the thing is, the show is called The Great American Read. Now, I understand that that doesn't mean that all these books are American. They're definitely not. But
No.
I'm just surprised that there's so many books from other places other than America in the top five, like Harry Potter, Pride and Prejudice, Lord of the Rings. All those authors are, they're international authors to you guys, pretty much. So I feel like there probably could have been like more actual representation of American authors. Now, a lot of Brits will hate me when I say this, but I think a lot of my favorite writers are from America and other parts of the world, not just Britain. So I feel like there's a lot of other books that are, written by Americans and people from other countries as well that probably should have been in the top five. But yeah, I mean, let's get to the whole list because I feel like there's a lot of books that were voted like that ranked really low on this list, that I think should have been a lot higher. Now, one of the books I have the most issue with is The Coldest Winter Ever, being at 98. Now, this is an important book for, the urban Black culture. Like, it's a powerful book. If you haven't read it, definitely do that, like, to really understand. But it's definitely a powerful book to, the inner city, demographic of America and everything. And I'm surprised that it's 98 because that's a powerful book. Like, how do you feel about that, Dana?
The thing with Coldest Winter Ever, I love the book very much so. I discovered it in college, and I've had so many people from different races come up to me while I was reading the book saying, "Oh my gosh, I love that book. That's such a great book." So I was really shocked to see it so high up. I would have easily, could have pictured in maybe the 50s or the 40s, but to get 98 made no sense to me whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. And it was a lot of books that just made no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, like stuff like the Great Gatsby is 15. I thought that would have been top 10 for sure.
It's my
What
second book of all time. So I was very much offended by that.
Say that again? You cut out.
That's my second favorite book of all time.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
yeah, I was like very hurt. And the fact that A Tale of Two Cities wasn't even on the list made me want to go and start punching people. Not in a threatening way, but just like in that shaking your soul. Because yeah, that made no sense.
Yeah. And 1984 by George Orwell, that was 18. I thought that would have been higher. Wuthering Heights was at 21. I thought that would have been top 10 for sure. Color Purple was 27. Uh, Da Vinci Code was 33. Handmaid's Tale 34. Dune was 35. Uh, Hunger Games 40. I think I could agree with that being, well, I probably actually would have put it lower, to be honest. Like, I would have put Hunger Games like maybe like 50s to 60s, but yeah.
What I'd love to have known is what was the process of getting these books on the 100 list? Just in general, like where are you picking your books from? Because no offense to the readers, you have 50 Shades of Grey on here. And it's like,
Yeah.
is there some type of criteria or is it just any book?
I think this is all popularity because for 50 Shades of Grey to be on this list, like, I mean, I could think of 200 books that should come before that book, So, yeah, I think this is really just popularity. And yeah, I mean, who, like, since you were there, like, how was the voting process? Who was the people voting? Was it the
It
people
was
in the audience or
it
like,
was the public. You would go on the PBS website and vote as many times as you wanted to, like daily for your favorite book.
right? Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, whenever there's like a public vote, I mean, yeah, you can kind of expect some odd results, I guess, because it's the general public, and like you said, they could vote as many times as they want to as well. So the system will get abused to an extent, but I mean, yeah, I guess you can't really judge it too harshly. I mean, we could say where we would have put certain books, but yeah, I do want to touch on one thing though. The Godfather was at 53. I have a little story here. I was actually contacted by one of the production studios who was working with the Great American Reads to record some footage talking about The Godfather because I done a review of one of Mario Puzo's other books, and I think they found that review and they were like, "Oh, could you record some footage to talk about The Godfather?" And I had to sign release forms and everything.
Oh.
I don't think they ever use the footage unless they put it online somewhere. I don't know, maybe on their Facebook. I don't know, but I never saw the footage used. So I may release that on Redditor at some point if I actually get clearance to do that. But yeah, I would have liked that book to have been higher because The Godfather is legit one of my favorite books of all time. Like definitely in my top 10 of books of all time. So bit sad that it's at 53. But yeah. Any other books stand out to you on this list?
I'm really happy the Dream Book Club was still on the list. That made me happy. I
Which
got
one?
to Amy Tan and like pass out at her feet and tell her how much I love her. So I'm happy that it made the list. But Great Expectations definitely should have been lower. War and Peace. I'm shocked that it was at 50 and not like 20.
Mm-hmm.
And also things like I was really surprised at the massive turnout for the Christian series. The Shack made it on the list. Left Behind series that took up like a whole bunch of years of my life because there's 12 books in there. So that was nice. Flower in the Attics. Flower in the Attics is kind of was like the old school 50 Shades of Grey in a way. And I think a lot of these books, their popularity is helped by the movies that came out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because I mean, how
Yeah,
is Ready Player One at 76 and
I
and the coldest winner ever is 98? Like that doesn't make sense at all. The Ready Player One was, I mean, I liked the concepts in that book, but the actual writing, the actual book itself, it was not that great. It wasn't like I would put that like a lot lower. Like, I mean, like I would put it at like 100 even maybe. Like, or I wouldn't even put it on this list to be honest with you. But
tell
yeah,
the truth.
that's
You love that book with all of your heart and all of your soul because you
nah.
kept telling me it. You was like, you gotta read it. You gotta read it. This is the greatest book ever. Oh my gosh.
No, the
Oh,
the reason why I told you to read it and Ramiz too, shouts to Ramiz, is because like I just really like the concept of it and the references. And as people who, because we talk about games and we podcast about games and stuff like that, I felt like it was cool to have those references and those ideas in the book, but the actual writing wasn't that strong in that book compared to other books on this list. So
it's 200 pages of him explaining what the Oasis is. Repeat it. Every inch, corner, fart, tear, head scratch of what the Oasis is. 200 pages. I don't even know if there was an actual plot in there because I couldn't anymore. I couldn't finish it.
yeah,
So yeah,
well, I'm sorry for subjecting you to that. But yeah,
that's that's all
I
right.
mean, shouts to PBS. I do think this was a great project.
Yeah,
Even though we weren't entirely happy with the final result, I do think the actual idea of the show was really good, and I hope they do it again. Like, is this something they plan to do like yearly or periodically or something?
I gathered it might be not necessary. If it's not yearly, then it's going to be like something that they come back to maybe every 2 or 5 years.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I think yearly might be too much. So yeah, every 5 years would be good, I think. Um,
That would be. And also a really weird thing that they kept saying about the list is it was very interesting how they broke it down, say like by states. Because if you were to go by different states, their top 10 was much different than say the whole country. So for example, Mexico, they had books that were written by Mexicans and was about the Mexican life. Or Alaska, they had their authors. So it was really interesting how that all broke down as well.
yeah.
And also a weird thing with To Kill a Mockingbird is that it was number one and it never changed its position from the first day of voting to the last.
Wow. People really love that book. I guess I got to read it.
I've read it. I've studied it because I had to study theater, and that's considered, fine piece of theater art, and it's going to be a Broadway production. I read it. I think it's very great. I think it's strong and powerful, but there's just others that's equally as good. And I guess because I was subjected to it for such a very long period in my life, after a while it just gets, oh, this again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, if you guys listening have any thoughts about the list, then definitely leave your comments. The list, the full list actually is on redditor.com, redditorgroup.com. So go check that out. You can see the list in full right there. We will link to it when we post this as well, so you guys can see it. But yeah, that's the PBS, the Great American Read. So there was some other topics to touch on before we get into what we've been reading. Dana, what's going on with the Black booktubers, man?
Oh, there's a lot going on the BookTube. First, it started with, certain videos making around saying that, people of color don't have the same number of subscribers as their Caucasian counterparts. So, say, for example, there is Jesse the Reader, who has, 500,000, and Paula, oh gosh, I'm just going to screw up that name, but it's like Paula Read something. They have these really like 300,000 up there in the 100,000s, and other booktubers who have 26,000, this la la, and they're saying that it's because people aren't welcoming to the people of color in their booktube and their videos. So there's been kind of like this movement where the Caucasian community, who has these massive followers, are linking the African American or other people of color, Asian booktubers out and saying, hey, giving them a nice little shout out saying, go subscribe and enjoy this video that this person did, to help boost them. And this has been something that's been going on very organically, very naturally, no real problem or anything. Then there was a booktuber by the screen name of Alyssa H. Wrights, who uploaded a video very passionate about how people of color are basically whining that they don't have the same amount of subscribers as their Caucasian counterparts, and that it isn't up to the Caucasians to promote anyone's website or any other of the videos by people of color, and that just get over it and try another tactic in order to get subscribers. That video made its rounds and circulations, and it was taken down because people did not react to that very nicely. So the thing that people are questioning, and if you was to go on BookTube, you can easily just type in diversity on BookTube, and there's plenty of discussion videos about that, addressing the video that she taken down. She was very passionate, and some would say she was gritting her teeth with like anger. Some people describe it as like pure anger of her saying that, it's not my fault that this is happening, boo-hoo, try another way. So a lot of the people in the community came together and was like, yes, there may be a diversity problem, but we are very open. We are very welcoming to everyone. There's the whole newbie book tag. If you're new to BookTube, you basically answer a series of questions, you upload your video, and that tag will help you get, new subscribers. And, there's also, they've been saying there's different ways to interact with the community. Many people do skits. Many people do bookshelves. They do the whole bookstore tour, and they provide different and unique contents and different ways of reviewing a book. So the big picture is that people are questioning whether or not there is a diversity problem in the BookTube community.
Okay. Now there's I don't know. There's two ways to to, to think of this. So, I mean, first of all, I definitely do agree there aren't many booktubers of color out there, especially ones that I watch. Like most of the people I watch on BookTube, they're Caucasian people, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. Like because I mean, whatever you're into watching, that's what you're into watching. So you're gonna watch whatever you enjoy. At the end of the day, now it would be nice to see more people of color and everything, but I don't think that you can pin the blame of that on any one person or demographic or anything like that. I mean, it just is the way it is. I think if you are a person of color who wants to get into booktubing, you should just try and do more to stand out and promote yourself and market yourself. And then eventually, people will find your stuff. You just have to be consistent with it. And you have to, promote yourself and just you have to put yourself out there so people can find you. And that's really what it is. I mean, for people who know us, like uh we also write at the coalition.com, which is a video game blog. And this is something we had to do to get into, to become known in the video games media pool of the internet. Like we had to just grind our way in and just continuously put out content until people found us. And I think it's just a case of doing that. Now with booktube, it's more of a personal intimate kind of thing that people do. Like some people initially aren't even trying to get a lot of views, they just want to document their reading, like they want to talk about the books they're reading and talk about stuff that's going on in publishing or whatever, and that's just their way to uh to enjoy their hobby. Like they record themselves and they put it out, and they're not necessarily bothered by who watches it and who doesn't watch it. Now if you're interesting enough, you might do that and end up accidentally getting an audience because you're interesting and everything. But you have to just naturally be interesting, because people, like, there's so much competition on YouTube. You have to be doing things to stand out. You have to show enough of your personality and who you are. And I guess that's really just what it comes down to. Now, I don't think you can blame anyone in particular. I don't think you can blame, black people or people of color for not watching people of color. Like you can't blame us for like not watching you because maybe we don't even know about you. So there's no one to really pin the blame on. It's just that more people of color need to put themselves out there and do it if they want to do it. And they just need to promote themselves in the right ways so that they can be seen. And that's really what it is. I mean, it's the same thing the Caucasian people have done. They put themselves out there and it catches on and people find it. So I think that's really what it is. Now, I will say that there has been times where I've come across like, Chinese people or Japanese people on BookTube, and I noticed they don't get as many views. Granted, they were kind of newer, like they hadn't, because most of the really popular ones, they've been pounding out videos for a long time. And these other ones I found, they've maybe been putting out content for like a year or something. So maybe it just takes a longer period of time. I don't know. But I mean, maybe, uh, I don't know, maybe the general viewer maybe would prefer to see one of those other, because numbers mean a lot on YouTube as well. Like if you're looking for something like a review of a certain book, you're probably more likely to go to the one that has the most amount of views anyway. So that probably factors into it. Like, the Caucasian ones, they already have such a huge following and a large amount of viewers that, you're probably just going to click straight onto their video before you give anyone else a chance. And I know people can find that hard because that happens in gaming too. Like with the gaming stuff we do, like if you're going to YouTube to search for, a Tomb Raider review or something like that, your IGN's going to come first. And you're probably like, if you're just a general gamer or whatever, you're probably going to click that IGN review and you're not going to scroll down long enough to find the coalition. So I think that's just the way it is. And it's unfortunate, but you just have to be more creative about the content you make and how you promote it, I think, to get around that. So that's really all I can say about it. What's your thoughts on it?
See, yeah, I agree completely. If you take BookTube like you would do any other sub-genre category in YouTube, you have to be very consistent. You have to apply yourself and you have to be different. And you're going to find someone, even if it's 10 subscribers or 20 or even 20,000, you're going to find someone who's going to match on to your videos and like them. Also, remember, you're competing against a very biased and weird algorithm system that I don't fully understand. And I'm pretty sure YouTube doesn't even understand. So that also is going to change things and how people view your videos as well. When it comes to me, one of the things I wanted to mention really quickly was to tie in, people were very upset with the New York Times here in America. There was a story that came out around BookCon, and they was talking about how BookTube was exploding and becoming this new thing, and how, you can find different videos for everything that you like now and different books for everything. And it was introducing us to all of these different YouTube personalities. The problem with that article, many people pointed it out, was that there was about only one person of color in that entire editorial. And people were very upset about that because, say, you're saying how diverse and welcoming and wonderful BookTube is, and there's only one person of color, and that person is mixed race. So it was a lot of anger among that as well. I will say that, you have to just go out there and start searching and just finding whoever it is that you like. With me, I don't look at color and be like, oh my gosh, this is a black person, I have to subscribe, or this is a white person or an Asian person. I go by the personality and if we have the same reading interests. So I'm not going to sit around and subscribe to someone who only reads romance because I don't like romance novels. You know what I mean? I like thriller, and I am starting to gravitate towards fantasy. So I'm going to subscribe to those people that I like in those genres, and not somebody who's of person of color. And I will say that yes, it is hard to find someone of person of color, but now, you have to just say, put out there and on when you're in the YouTube, people of color, BookTube, and see what comes up and see if, that person is someone that you want to watch videos of. I do understand that there is a problem. And you do see that there is a problem blatantly when, you have places like New York Times is like saying, oh, look how great and welcome it is. And there's no person of color. But it is also up to the subscriber to go out there and make the initiative or not make the initiative. Look, you like what you like, and you're going to gravitate to whoever it is that you gravitate to. So I think that it's like it's a lose argument either way. You're not exactly going to find the right thing with this. It's one of those weird debates that's happening. So there is an issue, but it's also up to the viewer to change that if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question to really answer, or in terms of how to fix this or whatever. I just feel like more people of color and other people from other walks of life, more of them just need to start making videos and putting them out and then trying new things. I think that's really what the solution is here, because let's say 80% of the booktubers are Caucasian, most of them female as well, and the remaining 20% represents the blacks, the Asian people, the Mexican people, and all those different demographics. So I mean, obviously that's a huge landslide right there. Like it's mostly populated by that 80%. So it's going to be much harder to find that 20%. So it's just a case of more people have to put their stuff out there and just promote it in creative ways. And I'm about to drop some game right here, as someone who's been putting out content for over 10 years now. Because there's so many booktubers out there now, and reviews are a big part of booktubing and making videos about books. Obviously reviews are like the biggest searched for thing. Like people want to see people's opinions on a certain book, so they're gonna search for reviews. Now obviously if you title your video Harry Potter review, like let's say the Deathly Hallows book review, if you title it that, there's going to be so much competition. So you have to do something a bit different. And, you could say maybe 10 things I didn't like about Deathly Hallows. Now, if you title it like that and everybody else is just titling it Harry Potter book review, you are going to get serious hits because people are going to be like, wait, he found 10 things he didn't like about it. Let me click that and see what those 10 things are. So you need to differentiate yourself and do different things like that, so your stuff stands out. Like, don't just do a traditional review. Do something a bit different that stands out and separates you from what everybody else is doing. And then, that way more people can be familiar with you and your content. So that's just, that's a tip I recommend for people of color out there who are trying to get into the booktube game and everything and get their views up. So I think it's just a case of that. Any final thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree. You have to just go out there and you have to be yourself and be unique, which I hope yourself is unique because you are unique. So yay. Yeah, just go out there and don't let this stop you from, uploading that video or subscribing to that person. Do you, boo?
Exactly. Do you?
Boo.
Do you, boo? Yep, that's the word. So what was this thing about the hate you give that you was going to talk about?
Also to tie in, Lionsgates. No, not Lionsgate. Sorry, 20th Century Fox. Is the producer of The Hate You Give, which is a fantastic movie, and we talked about it before and how I was crying and in tears and like so bad to the point where the person next to me was like, "Are you okay?" and handed me like a whole box of tissues. What happened is they went and invited a bunch of booktubers to be on the set, give a nice little tour, and to have little cameos in the classroom setting. And people were very upset that the people who were invited were people who are not people of color. So the thing with that, if you have not read the book, which you should, or you have not seen the movie, it is a movie that is about people of color and police brutality and how it is to, survive losing one of your best friends through police brutality in a shooting. And people are saying that, they were very much out of touch by inviting the people to be a part of the movie who are not people of color, and that they couldn't fully understand. Yes, you can have an understanding and have empathy towards the character and towards, what it's like, but you'll never be able to truly experience it just because you're not a person of color. And that type of harassment is not something that you face on a daily basis. You have Black men and boys who just walk outside to just be standing on the street corner and they'll be stopped by police. What are you doing? Why are you standing there? That rarely happens to, a Caucasian person. So people are very upset about that. And again, it's 20th Century Fox and not Lionsgate's. They're very upset that those people were invited. But also on the flip end and flip side of things, I feel that they went out and tried to find, again, this goes back to what we were previously saying, people with the highest subscribers so that it would be used as great marketing for people out there in the BookTube community to go and see the movie. Because it's like, oh, look, Jessica is my favorite booktuber and she's in The Hate U Give. I'm going to go see the movie because Jessica was in it and she recommended it. So stuff like that. So people were very like,
yeah, it's always politics with things like this. Like, I mean, going back to the coalition and everything, and all the stuff I've been through with that site. Like this whenever these PR companies or whatever want to book these events and invite people, it's always politics. Like they're gonna go with who has the most views over, like, because I would say the coalition is one of the well, I mean, things have kind of changed with our staff at the moment, but the coalition at one point in time, like it was the most consistent, independent video game blog at one point. And like if we got a review copy, it would be reviewed. Like we would write, our asses off basically. Like, and the PR companies appreciated that. But in this, it's the wild west out there, and especially with YouTube, and there's so many people putting out content and doing numbers, and it's hard for us to compete with that. So they would always choose to send the YouTubers over us, even though the YouTubers will probably do less to promote the game than we would, because we would write content about it consistently, talk about it on the podcast and everything. But because those YouTubers have a high number of views, they're gonna invite them to the event before they invite us, and that's just the way the politics work. Like they're going with the numbers, and those YouTubers probably, they might mention the game one time or something, or in some cases they don't even talk about the event or the game or whatever. Like they just go to the event, and I mean maybe they put up a few Instagram posts or something, like pictures, selfies or whatever, but it's just it's just a numbers game. Like because they see that that person has X amount of subscribers and views on their videos, or maybe that person is talking about a game that they consider to be their biggest competitor. They want to invite that person, before they invite the people who will actually do work, Um, so that's just the way it is, with that. So I think that's what it was. I don't think they were going for booktubers who best represent the type of movie that The Hate U Give is. They were just going for popular booktubers, period, like because they wanted that publicity. So I think that's what happened there, and it's sad, but hey, it happens.
it's it's all about numbers.
Yep, indeed. But speaking of numbers, what's the number of books that you read since the last show?
I am ashamed. Oh, 2.5.
2.5. Okay. I'll let you go first then.
It's because you have like 10 this time. Will you switch
But
places?
this is probably like the first time I've got more than you to talk about. But
First time in history. It was a busy October because remember, we also had Comic Con. So
oh yeah,
I had Comic Con I had to deal with.
and your
But
one was like way better than ours. So yeah.
apparently so. Like he was very like the things that you was telling me, it was kind of sad. It made me really sad. At least you guys didn't even have like a panel that was decent. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but I went there with my friend Ramiz, so at least that was special. We got to hang out and everything, so that was cool. But yeah, I mean, I want to go to a real Comic Con one day. Either San Diego or New York. So we'll see. I do want to return to New York, so maybe I'll try and make New York Comic Con next year. But yeah, carry on.
Kids do miss you very much so.
Oh yeah, I miss everything.
My books. Oh, it was You by Caroline Kepnes. You is the reason why I started reading You is because there's a TV show in America. It hasn't, I don't think it's in the UK yet, but it's in America. They adapted it. It stars. It's basically, if you ever watch Gossip Girl, it's the dark side of Gossip Girl. The actor who played Dan from Gossip Girl, he is now surprisingly a writer. So basically, it's this guy, right? And this guy's name is Joe. Joe is a writer, and he works at a bookstore. And in walks in this girl named Guinevere, but she goes by Beck. And they have a nice little introduction. He falls madly in love with her during this whole introduction spiel, and he basically steals her credit card information, looks her up, looks up her social media platforms, which she keeps public, her phone that she keeps public, everything is all public. And he begins to lovingly stalk her. And he learns everything about her because she has this, their social media is public. It's like, I farted today. So now he knows that she farted. And, a place that she loves being around. And he learns about her boyfriend and her friends and her life at university and her studying to be a writer. The twist is, like all things, Beck is not the same person as she is online and in real life. Just like Joe is not the same person who he is, when he's stalking someone and when he's just regular Joe. So the whole story is basically about unveiling who you truly are. Are you able to like the person that you thought you knew? Are you able to like them, or is it the facade that you're falling in love with? And it becomes very dark, very twisty. He ends up murdering a handful of people in order to manipulate Beck into falling in love with him, into having this, deep relationship. And the more that they have this relationship, the more they learn things about each other that they may not like. So that's like the most spoiler free I can give you. And, with the TV show, it is very well adapted. And I truly liked this book. I wasn't in love with this book. I felt that Joe, as a character, I love the way how it was written. It was written entirely from his perspective. So you're finally like in the head of someone who is basically a killer and has this weird obsession. And it's rare that you get books that are like that. And it was a very emotional roller coaster. I found myself both loving Joe and understanding Joe and being scared of him. And then there were like these moments was like, oh, but it is really kind of sweet. But also at the same time, it's like, no, he's still stalking her. That's not sweet at all. And there were moments where I just could not stand back. And, I found her to be very naive and annoying, but also someone who just wanted love and wanted attention. And it was very sad. But I felt that it was very well written. And I love that it just focused on like just Joe's perspective and it didn't change, different perspectives. But also at the same time, when you're reading it and you're learning about these other characters, I kind of really wanted to know more about them and learn more about what was going on in their lives. There was one character whose name I can't remember. She was the female, the best friend, whose name is skipping me.
Oh, yeah, she had a really distinct name. I can't remember her though.
She has a very distinct name, which makes it even more painful because her name was just really distinct. But I would have loved if the book explored a little bit more of her character and more of a little of the other characters as well. One of my big problems, now this is a, a duel, a duel, I don't know what you call it. It's two books. She wrote a sequel called Hidden Bodies. I didn't read that yet. But the way I felt in this book, for me, the deaths, especially there's like a first death that occurs, is very quick, it's very sudden, and everyone gets over it.
Peach, that was her name, Peach.
Peach. Yes, Peach. I am so sorry, Peach. I loved Peach. Then I hated Peach, but then I loved her again. And then you're like, there's something dark about Peach. And then you realize what it is. It's like everyone's vying for this one girl's attention.
I never liked her character, but yeah.
Oh, I loved her character. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Peach is a weird character and a weird person. But for me, the main issue was that there are deaths that occur and they're quickly glossed over, and it doesn't really seem like any of the characters were mourned. It was just like, oh, I don't know, SpongeBob died today. Oh, that's sad. I miss SpongeBob. Yeah, how about that coffee? I would have liked if there was some type of impact, if we just felt something about how, how does everything, how that goes on. But I guess at the same time, it kind of makes sense because it is through Joe's perspective. And because of that, Joe doesn't exactly mourn the characters that he's killing. So he wouldn't see other people mourning them as well. He would easily just gloss over that. So in a weird way, it kind of works. But I do very much look forward to the sequel, and I found it to be very fun. So, yeah, I will say that. The second book that I read was Pride by Ibi Zoboi. It's Ibizoboi. There's a story before the story. That's my story. I found out about this book way before BookCon. I was thinking around February. I found out about this book because Entertainment Weekly wrote this editorial about it, and it's a retelling of Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice. The characters are African American and Latino, so I was like, oh, this is going to be really good. It also takes place in Brooklyn, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I love it already. So it's about these sisters, and they live in this brownstone, and in moves the new neighbors. And the new neighbors, they're like these rich boys. They're Black, and they're these rich boys. And, it's, oh my gosh, the boys moved in. What are we going to do? Oh, I fell in love. And, if you watch Pride and Prejudice, you know anything about it. The lead sister can't stand the oldest boy. And it's like this weird love-hate relationship that goes on between them. With this twist, it also involves gentrification because it's about Brooklyn and about how the neighborhood is changing to more affluent and how that affects other characters and people who live in the neighborhood who can't afford, the big riches and can't afford to renovate their house and can't afford, basic everyday life anymore because we have what was originally mom and pop stores are now these big time restaurants and, hoity-toity type of neighborhoods and coffee shops and latte centers. So I found out about the book in February, and they had it at BookCon. I was very obsessed about it. Almost ended up physically fighting a person for it. I didn't get the book because the person was like way more aggressive than me. So I was very upset and angry about that.
Wow.
And I got the book like in the library when it released. And I think it was literally because the stars aligned and I was not meant to own this book. This book was, I would have to say, the worst book of the year. It was, it was excruciatingly awful.
What was bad about it?
This is coming from someone who read about a roach-infested apartment and the lives of roaches. Okay, so that's how bad it was. It was very disappointing. To me, it was just poor writing. I could not get into the writing at all. Um, I felt that it was very lazy, and very lazy because there was a lot of exposition. There was nothing but exposition, which, if you don't know, it's just you tell, 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 tell. You don't show anything. So it's like Rosa is sad today, but it doesn't show Rosa being sad. It doesn't show what Rosa's going through. It doesn't have any emotion, any type of feeling through it. So the entire time, you're just reading everyone's feelings. Not
So
feelings.
it's
Everyone's
telling,
just telling.
not showing.
It's nothing but telling. So it's like Rosa is sad, but you're not showing me why Rosa is sad, and you're not showing me her being sad. You're just telling me she's sad, and I don't really understand why are we getting there. Also, one of the things that completely baffles me that I do not understand, and I would love for someone to explain this to me, as a writer, if you want characters to have some type of chemistry, even if it's a love hate type of thing, we all seen people like, like the little kid. Oh, I can't stand you. I can't stand you either, Bobby. But you still have that kind of chemistry with each other that's underlying in the surface. That doesn't exist there. The two main characters, who, if you don't never have read of Pride and Prejudice, they hate each other and then fall in love with each other. And it's always like, I've always liked to, but I'm kind of afraid to. Oh, I can't stand you. You're too, stubborn or snobbish or whatever. It's viewed as the new neighbors that move in, who are the African American boys. They're very hoity-toity, and they don't fit in into a society that's still considered the hood. It's not fully dignified. So they're being viewed as very snotty and very bougie. They go to private school, so they have like the best of educations, and they don't understand what the certain terms in the hood is. Or there's one incident where they don't understand, the proper way how you stand your ground during a argument in a grocery store, because they don't have that type of experience. Fine, that's great right there. You're showing me some type of conflict with this. And what baffled me more than anything in the world is that there's no chemistry at all in any point of the book between the characters. And the only time when you do read chemistry is when it's with another character that just randomly came out of the blue. That makes no sense at all. So I'm reading a book about, and you know what the ending is if you've ever read Pride and Prejudice. Spoiler alert, they get together at the end, where it's like, how is that happening when there's no chemistry whatsoever? Like, I'm not feeling anything. So that was something that I just completely did not understand. One of the other things that I didn't get at all was the main character, Zuri. She's the main sister. She was excruciatingly annoying, ignorant, and very contradictory, where the writer would have the characters, say, because remember, we don't show anything. We just say that she loves books. She spends hours in the bookstore, hours in the library reading, but she is very closed-minded. She's very ignorant. She's never been out, and it's okay. You've never been outside of your block of Brooklyn, say, like even just a corner. You've never been outside your physical actual block, but you spend all these times in Brooklyn, and you're okay with being ignorant, with not wanting to know more. I can understand if you don't have the money to travel, but you don't even have the desire to do that. So that was something that I just did not understand from this writer at all.
I see. Yeah. I guess that's something that would get me too. Like, if all through the book it's just telling and not showing, like, and as someone who writes as well, that's something that I had issues with when I started writing. Because I mean, if you're new to writing, that's something you probably naturally do, because you haven't really figured out how to show everything. But I think that's something that comes with reading a lot and writing a lot. So you just have to read and write until you get an understanding, and I don't know who the author is of this book, and if they're new to writing, or if this was professionally published and they had editors or anything. I mean, I would assume they had editors, and the editors should have been able to catch that. But yeah, that must have been very grating. If you know, if it was just telling all through and there was no chemistry between the characters and stuff like that. It sounds like the writing was very dry. But so you definitely don't recommend this book, though, right? Oh, okay. I think Dana had to step away for a sec. But yeah, I saw your Instagram. I saw you were posting that book that book too, and the book cover actually looks really nice of that book, and it had me kind of interested. But hearing about your review of it, I'm like, nah, yeah, I don't think that's something I'm gonna read. But yeah, Dana did say she read 2.5 books, so I'm guessing she's in the middle of another book. I mean, I might have to get her to talk about that other book a little later and hop straight into what I've been reading, because she's stepped away for a sec. So let me get straight to it. So the first book I want to talk about now, I didn't actually finish this book, but I bought it and I started reading it. Now the thing is, the book is called Traces, and it's written by Stephen Baxter, and it's a collection of sci-fi short stories, which is why I bought it, because I want to get into a lot more sci-fi, because I'm actually writing something sci-fi related. As we record this, it's NaNoWriMo now, which is National Novel Writing Month, which is always in November. So I'm actually working on something that's sci-fi at the moment, and to get my mind into the whole sci-fi genre and everything, I wanted to read some sci-fi, and I thought this book would be a good start because it's short stories. It's a collection of short stories, so I can read one story a day, or whenever there's need for it. I've read one story so far, and I really like it, because the thing is with sci-fi, it can get dense very easy, like the writing. So, but this, it was kind of clear. It was it had description about technology and everything, but it was clear and easy to follow, and I like that. So I'm looking forward to reading more of the stories. So that book is called Traces. Now, before I continue with the rest, Dana is back. Yeah, are you okay, Dana?
Terribly sorry. It was a very weird issue.
Okay. I believe you had like another half of a book or something you were going to talk about.
Yeah. So the rant, very end of the rant, is that zero chemistry within the characters. The writing itself was just, I could not get into at all. I found it to just be very basic type of writing, and also with my own, I guess because I built it up so much in my head, and I've been waiting months and months for this book, that that added also to the disappointment with it. And for me, hands down, that was clearly the worst book of the year. So very upset about that. One of the last books that I do have on the list, or half of the book that I've half in a good way. It is called The Boy in the Keyhole. It is a thriller. It is by Stephen Glass. It's not Glass, Stephen Giles, the Giles. It is amazing. It is about this boy who is around the age of 9. His name is Samuel. He lives in an estate in the UK, and his mom is out on business. She's traveling. It takes place in the 60s. She's traveling to America so that she's able to raise capital for her business. His father died recently from a head injury. He slipped and fell and hit his head, and he died that way. And so now it's up to the mother to kind of take on the roles of the business. And as a result, she has to go to America and basically beg other rich people for money to fund the business. Um, the thing is that the boy is kept in the house with his nanny. It's nanny and housekeeper and overall caretaker. Her name is Ruth. She runs the house. She's very strong with an iron fist, and she can be very brutal, not physically, but just that tough, stern mentality that people have. The thing is that he is trying to get in contact with his mother, who's been away for almost 13 months now. And the mother does send telegrams and little postcards and whatnot to say, "Hey, how you doing? I love you very much." But something doesn't seem right. He's not able to call his mother. He's not able to write any letters back to her. So he starts believing or thinking that his mother was murdered and that the murderer is Ruth. That's what he believes. I'm not stating that the murderer is Ruth. So rumor starts rolling around town, and he goes into her bedroom, which he's basically barred from doing, but he goes into her bedroom and starts going through her journals and her postcards and her very sporadic letters to find out what happens to his mother. It is the complete opposite of Pride in regards to I love it very much. I would say that it's very similar to Rebecca. If you ever read the book Rebecca, it's by Daphne du Maurier. It was also on the Great Reads of 100, the 100 list. So it has this very creepy overtone type of way about it. It's very well written. It's very creepy. It's very mysterious. And I love it so far with all of my heart and soul.
Nice. So you'll be finishing that pretty soon then.
Very soon, because the thing about that book is that it's very short. So I love that aspect about it very much. It's only around like 200 and some odd change. So that's a good, it's like 272 pages. So that's it. You easily finish it. And it's a very easy read.
Sounds good.
Yes.
Oh yeah, so while you left, I was just beginning to talk about a book called Traces that I've been reading. I haven't finished it, but it's a short story collection. So, I read the first story, and it's a sci-fi, collection of short stories by Stephen Baxter. And I wanted to get into reading more sci-fi stuff, so that's the reason I got that. And I'm because one of the things I never do is I never tend to read two novels at the same time. But with this, I feel like I can fit it in with the main novel that I'm reading because it's just short stories. So, the stories are like 10 pages, each. So,
yeah, that's short.
huh?
It's very short.
Yeah, exactly. So I could just fit that in with whatever else I'm reading too, and it's easy. So yeah, so I'm reading that. But as far as the other books that I've largely finished this month, so I'll start with The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. Um, a couple months back, I believe I spoke about the girl who played with fire, which is the second book in the Millennium series, which starts with the girl with the dragon tattoo. So this is the third book, and it's the final book written by Stieg Larsson, who is the original author. And this was a really good book. I rated it 5 stars on Goodreads. It was a hell of a ride. Uh, Basically, in this book, I don't want to spoil too much of the other books for people who haven't read, but um, Lisbeth is kind of she's recovering for like almost half of this book. She's basically recovering and stuff, and she's conscious throughout, but she's recovering. And basically, there's a conspiracy against her and Mikhail Bloomvist, who's the other main character. He's trying to help clear her name while also uncovering this government espionage plot, basically. So yeah, it's this one is really political, and there's a lot of espionage involved in it. One thing I will say is that there's this subplot that's based on Erica Berger, who is one of the other characters in the story. She occasionally sleeps with Mikhail Bloomquist throughout the books. Like they have a certain relationship, a weird relationship, because Erica Berger is actually married, but she's in like an open relationship where her husband actually lets her sleep with Bloomquist, whenever she wants to, because I don't know, that they just have an understanding, So basically, there's this subplot surrounding Berger, and her privacy is kind of invaded, and she has a stalker and everything. Now, for like that plot subplot lasts for like 100 pages or so, and it's actually pretty, it's pretty engaging as it unfolds. But I will say that the way it concludes is very lackluster, and it adds nothing to the final outcome of the book at all. So I think that's one of the nitpicks about the book, is that it builds up this incredible subplot that kind of goes nowhere. But still, overall, I think the book is really good, and these three books have been, definitely some of my favorite books of all time. And hackers is a theme that I'm really into, and obviously Lisbeth is a hacker. So that's one of the things that really makes me like this series. Now I have a dilemma, because there are two other books in this series, but they're written by another author, because Stieg Larsson died. And he had, like, Stieg Larsson had 10 books planned in this series when he died. And he had notes and everything, and I believe his wife has those notes. But because his wife didn't have any of the rights, because Stieg Larsson had a publisher, the publisher has the rights. So she couldn't actually continue his stories for him, so they gave it to another author. So part of me is like, I really don't want to continue, because I want to see what Stieg Larsson was actually planning to do with these characters, because they're his characters. This is his creation. So I wanted to see where he's going to take things, but obviously he's dead, so it's not possible. Um, and it makes me reluctant to continue reading the series, knowing that it's a different author, and he has no access to the plans that Stieg Larsson had for the characters, so he's going to take it somewhere completely different. So that makes me not want to read it, but at the same time, I've built up such a rapport with the characters that I actually do want to continue reading. So it's like, I don't know whether I should continue to read or if I shouldn't. Now, one thing I will say is that the girl who kicked the hornet's nest, it does end in a good place. There's no cliffhanger or anything, but there's definitely room open for it to continue. Like, you could tell that he was probably going to do more, but it does actually end in an okay place if you do want to end the series there. But I don't know, what was you going to say, Dana?
Someone who saw the girl in the spider's web,
Mm-hmm.
I will say give it a chance.
Really?
It's very emotional and very gripping.
Hmm.
Whether or not, it will read the same, I think that if you just let go of being upset that it may sound different, the characters and how it's read, you may like it. But I find it to be very emotional and very gripping. And this is from someone who does not like the original trilogy. I didn't
Okay.
like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think my curiosity will lead me to try it eventually. I just don't think I can do it right now, because I have to let it settle. Like, I have to, give my appreciation to Stieg Larsson, because I really did enjoy these books. So maybe like in a year or so, I might, check out the girl in the spider web. But I don't know, we'll see. But I really do love the characters though. So yeah, it's really a shame that he died. Yeah, I was gonna say something potentially controversial, but I'm not going to. Um,
Uh-oh.
no, I was gonna say let's hope it doesn't happen to another author that's writing a popular series right now. But yeah,
Talking about our James R.
there you go. Yeah,
Oh, no, you can say it. Everybody's been saying that. I remember people. I remember people coming up to him and being like, could you write the series before you die, please? Like it's kind of really mean, but people are very like upset because they strongly feel that he will die before this series is written, which is kind of sad because he's a very healthy. I don't know his medical records, but he seems to be a very healthy and thriving, happy man when I met him.
yeah. He seems like a really nice guy. Like he's cool. He seems cool. I hope nothing happens to him. I don't want to put that out there, and then I don't want to play with death like that. But I just want to like basically what I want to say is it's really upsetting to read something like this from someone who is dead, and to know that they had more to give, but they just can't. Like it kind of hurts a little bit, like to think about. So I just I just hope it doesn't happen with anyone else, because it's a really sad thing. And I think this opens up another dialogue about book rights as well, because I feel like if if an author has a contract with a publisher, I feel like he should have the power to say who can continue his story, like if he wants to give it to his wife or another family member or something, to continue. I think he should have that right, but he doesn't, because Stieg Larsson's wife could have carried on the books how he intended, but she didn't have the rights to, and that's a sad thing, So um yeah, but yeah, that's it. This is a great series, the Millennium series, so I urge everybody read it, whether you read the first three or all five of them. That's up to you. Definitely check out the movies too. I hear great things about them. I'm a person who likes to read the books before I see the movies, so I'm probably gonna go and watch all three of the Swedish movies for these now. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So another book which you already spoke about is You by Caroline Kepnes, I think her name is. Um, Now I I feel similar to you on a lot of things. So let me talk about the positives first. Like I really love a psychological thriller, and one of my beliefs in all books is that the characters don't have to be likable. They just have to be somewhat captivating and somewhat exciting to read about. And this was one of those books where I didn't like everyone. There was now I will say one thing, like the main character Joe, who you're experiencing things from his perspective. You're not supposed to like him, but there's certain parts where you're like you're like you can't help but agree with him, or you can't help but root for him in certain situations. And it kind of makes you feel morally wrong for doing that because of the type of person he is. But um I think that's an example of really great writing, to where the writer has you agreeing with this character, even though you're not supposed to, because he's like, he's a psycho basically. But I think that's the sign of great writing here. And the fact that Caroline Kepnes is obviously she's a female, but she wrote a male character and she did it so convincingly. And also, she showed how how rough it can be for a male in the dating game in this generation, because a lot of the scenarios and situations that Joe encounters with Beck, it's very real. It comes from a real place. Like a lot of the stuff happens. Like if you're a young male out there dating, a lot of these situations occur. And I feel like she carried off the feelings of that very convincingly, despite that she's a female and she's, you know, she's writing about a male, she's writing from a male perspective. It definitely felt very real. So I think she did a great job with that. Um, and I agree with the problems you had with it. I agree. There were murders in this book, and they were just glossed over, and it felt like, you know, there were these murders, and it's like, okay, so where's the investigation? Like, who's investigating this murder or this, you know, this death or whatever? Like, it's like it happens, and you don't really hear anything else about it. And the whole time I'm waiting for some sort of consequence to come from these murders, you know. And it's like, you know, I don't want to blow the ending or anything, but yeah, it's like it feels like you can just go on a murder spree and nothing happens in this world, you know. Like, so I mean, that is something, but at the same time, it doesn't kill your enjoyment level, because you're going to be so hooked. Like, this is the true definition of a page turner. Like, this book had me, like, I finished it in a week, and currently I'm reading something that's shorter than you is, and it's taking me longer to finish than you did, because you was just so captivating. I was just flying through the pages. Like, you know, occasionally you'll get a book like that where you're just so into it that you finish it so quickly, you know, even though it's longer than other stuff, you know. Like, this was one of those books for me. Like, I just teared through it because it was so interesting. um and yeah, I mean, none of the characters were likable, but I feel like they were all interesting in their own way. um and I like the fact that there's a sequel to it, and I can't wait to get to the sequel, Hidden Bodies, to see, you know, what happens next and everything. But definitely a good book if you're into your psychological thrillers. This comes highly recommended by me. So yeah, you was great. Loved it. And I will check out the TV show as well once that hits Netflix in the UK. So yeah, uh, that's you. And the other book, now this book, I literally was reading it before we started this podcast, and I'm just a few pages away from finishing it. So I had to stop reading so I could do the podcast. Like, I was literally like 10 pages away from finishing it or something. So yeah, but that's how dedicated I am. I stopped, you know, reading to do this podcast, and I haven't finished it. But as soon as I finish this, I'm gonna just go ahead and finish it. But I can talk about it because I'm pretty much at the end. Um, so the book is called Echoes, and it's by Laura Tisdall, and this is about a 16-year-old female hacker, and basically, you know, she's part of this online hacking group called the Forum, and there's like there's an admin on the forum called the Oscar, and he basically assigns different hacking assignments to you know, the different hackers in the group and everything. And Laura, you know, she in her real life, she's struggling with you know, she has a father suffering from PTSD, and her mother left her. She's not really sure why, and she has a younger brother that she kind of has to look out for as well. So she's only 16 years old, but she has to basically be the guardian of the house because her dad isn't, you know, and he isn't fully fit to be a proper father, because he has, you know, moments of PTSD and everything. And, you know, she basically has to cook and, you know, do everything for her brother and everything and make sure he's looked after. So it's a lot of pressure on her in her daily life. And she, you know, when she gets a moment to, she's always stuck at her computer on the forum. And you know, that's her pastime, basically hacking. And she becomes really good at it, so good that she builds a reputation from it. And then one day, the Oscar informs her that hackers have been going missing, like disappearing. At first, it's hackers that are outside of the forum, like just other hackers in the world. And then eventually people from the forum start disappearing, and the asker wants to go investigate this, and he asks Mallory, that's the name of the main character. Her name is Mallory, and her hacker name is Echo 6. So he asks her if she would be willing to meet up so they can investigate together. Now, one of the rules of the forum is that they never share any personal information. They never ever meet up with each other. They keep it anonymous. Like, they just have their nicknames, like their hacker names, and that's it. So she struggles with that decision, and she basically refuses, but then later on the Oscar goes missing. So basically it's like it opens up a whole can of worms, a whole conspiracy, and she has to figure out what's going on, and why hackers are going missing, and she gets caught up in this conspiracy and everything. And yeah, I don't want to blow too much. Now, the book the book is good. I will say that this is more of a young adult style hacking book. So, like, coming off of the girl who the girl who kicked the hornet's nest, I was looking for, a more mature kind of hacker story similar to the Millennium series. But this was basically more aimed at the young audience. I didn't know that ahead of time. Um, so, I kind of went into it thinking that it would be more of an adult book, but it was actually more of a young adult book. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're expecting something a bit more mature, a bit more complex, this definitely isn't it. It's not very technical in terms of how it describes the hacking. It's very surface level stuff. It doesn't really go into much detail of what Mallory is doing on the computer and stuff. It just, it's very just character driven. It doesn't really talk about the technical aspects of hacking or anything like that. So if you want a hacking story with a bit more depth, then there's probably other hacking stories out there that you could probably get, that fill that need. But this is, this is a cool sort of easy read, and it's easy to follow, and it's a fairly decent story. It wasn't exactly what I expected at the time of reading, but it was decent. It's decent. So if you want more of a tame kind of hacking story, then definitely go for this. But at the moment, I want something a bit more hardcore, a bit more technical. But this is still okay, still good. So yeah, but that's all I've been reading. So
That seems like a lot, which is still weird because I have like 20 books, never like that.
yeah,
22.
you usually have like 20, and I usually have like two or three or
Like,
something. So
only talk about 10, Dana. Please stop talking. But no, your books seem really good. You love hackers.
oh
So
yeah, definitely.
you secretly want to start breaking into government systems and start hacking things.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't want to say too much on air, but yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
No,
I'm not
I'm
gonna say
joking.
nothing.
I'm joking. If you're listening, government, I'm joking. I'm joking.
He's joking. We are very ignorant over here. No hacking at all.
Yeah, I don't even know how to hack, to be honest. So yeah.
Well, I can barely turn on the computer without asking for help, so no hacking. He laughs because he knows this.
That's hilarious.
Yeah,
But
that's sad. But no, your book sounds really interesting and really fun and much better than Pride, which was
oh,
awful. So awful.
oh yeah,
So
and I have to thank you again for recommending You to me, because when it comes to psychological thrillers, you've definitely recommended me some great ones this year. So
the more
thanks again.
screen, the better. So,
Mhm.
and you tend to like that as well, which makes me wonder, should I start calling you Joe now?
Nah,
You're
I don't do those kind of things.
like, no, I'm boring, man. I'm a lover, not a fighter, not a killer.
Yeah, I mean, even if I did do those kind of things, I wouldn't admit it here. So, you know.
Ooh, he left it open. Ooh.
Now, well, let's get into what we want to read next. So I'm going to let you go first. What are you going to be reading next?
Well, I want to finish my lovely Boy in the Keyhole just because of how amazing it is and it's going. So the writing is amazing. But aside from that, I have, you know what? I'm still not caught up on all of my Halloween books. And when I say by Halloween, they're all basically thrillers. So I haven't really finished those, which is kind of sad. But I have the Cabin at the End of the World, which is basically about two people. They're about a family, and the family lives way far out, and they're the last, of their kind. They're trying to save the world. A mysterious guy comes to their doorstep, and he's saying, we need you guys to come and help us and to essentially save the world. And it's just a really weird, creepy type of book. So that is something that I'm definitely looking forward to. Um, so I think that should be really good. I really wish I was able to read it during the Halloween time, but I wasn't able to. Another one of the books that I wanted was The Cheerleaders. The Cheerleaders is about a group of cheerleaders, around five of them or so, who start dying very mysteriously, and one of their sisters is out there to find out what happened and to solve the murder of everything. Um, Another one is The Perfect Liar. This is by Thomas Christopher Green. Another one of those perfect marriages, but there's a secret that they're keeping from each other. And it's about this married couple who live in Vermont, and the wife receives a note at the door saying, "You know who you are." Max, the husband, he thinks it's a prank, but soon another letter appears at the door, and it's like, "Did you get away with it?" So it's like one of those "what's going on" situations, and I was really gravitated towards it because it kind of reminded me of "I Know What You Did Last Summer," which was a movie, and where you have to find out what happened during that summer that what you did. So I found that to be really interesting that I wanted to read. Another one is called Our Kind of Cruelty. It's by Araminta Hall. It's a love story, but it's just Mike's love story, meaning that only he sees it as a love story. Um, he has a very difficult childhood. It's very abusive and he's very lonely. And then he meets this woman named Verdi. And Verdi goes by V, ends up teaching him about love and what is it like to be in a healthy relationship. As a result, Mike decides that he's going to dedicate his entire life to making her happy. They're going to find the perfect home, perfect job. He sculpts himself into, how women say, "I want that idealistic man," or would men say, "I want that, that perfect woman." He sculpts herself into what she thinks is the idealistic man. Um, the thing is that Verdi doesn't see it that way, doesn't see the relationship that way. She hasn't returned any of the emails or the phone call. And also, she's marrying this other man. So he's basically in a relationship with himself. And he's very determined to be in a relationship with Verdi. So I thought that was very interesting. And, I love, again, very those dark thrillers where it's about obsession and it gets very, complicated between your desire and your reality. So I think that should be something that I hope doesn't suck. And also, lastly, I really wanted to read. It's called My Lovely Wife. Again, as you can see, there's a theme going on. It's basically like Dexter. It's a thriller about a couple who's they've been together for 15 years and they're kind of bored with each other. So they decide in a weird way to start murdering people as a couple in order to like add spice and romance to their life. So it's about the fallout of their bonding time with each other. Yeah, so that, and one that is not exactly a horror or thriller is called The Power by Naomi Alderman. It's basically about this very rich Nigerian kid who, you know, is very privileged and kind of very uppity and wastes his life away because, you know, he has all the money in the world. And it's about this other side. It's about this girl who's very religious and that she has to hide her true nature and what she really is. Also, it focuses on a politician, and there's also a girl from London. Something changes in their lives that kind of causes them to connect with each other. And it's about this twist and how one twist can change your life and bring people into your life forever. So, yay.
That's a lot of books. I guess your next.
That was 5.
I mean, I guess your next books that you read list on the next show is going to be stacked. So
I hope so. I don't know. I may end up reading 2 books again. Who knows?
I don't think so. I think you're going to have a huge list, and I'm probably going to have like 2. So we'll see. So as for the books I want to read next, you know, definitely Hidden Bodies. I think Hidden Bodies is going to be the next one I read after I finish, you know, those last 10 pages of Echoes. I'm going to hop straight into Hidden Bodies because you captivated me so much that I just want to get back into, you know, the mind of Joe and see what happens next and stuff. So
Yeah, you have to tell me what it is. See, unlike you, I have to wait until like the library because I'm poor. So I have to wait until the library gets it in. So you'll be reading that way before me.
oh man, well, you know, maybe I'll help you out, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, I definitely want to read that. And also I want to read Human Acts by Han Kang. Now, Han Kang is the author of The Vegetarian, which is, you know, probably my favorite book that I read this year. I read this in January. It was like the first book I read this year, and it's still, you know, one that I remember and, you know, one that I keep thinking about. So I want to read another book from the author. So yeah, Human Acts. I think it's about time that I finally get around to reading that. Another book is The Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Now, this book, from what I understand, is about, you know, it's a Japanese book, and it's about a young female who's kind of lost in life, and she's being pressured by her parents to, you know, I guess get some sort of degree and everything, go to college, university, and they basically want her to work hard because, you know, the culture in Japan, it's very much work, work, work. You know, like if you're not working hard enough, people judge you for it, basically. But she feels too pressured by that, you know, and she kind of wants to break free of that pressure and that expectation from, you know, her parents and everyone else. And she starts working at a convenience store, and, you know, through her different interactions and different tasks and everything at the store, she finds, you know, new meanings and understandings in life. So yeah, it seems like a cool kind of story. This book, like the reason I found it is because I went to Foyles, which is a huge bookstore here in the UK. They have a couple stores in London, and, you know, it was like on every floor, basically. Like, I saw a copy of this on every floor, and it's a yellow book, and yellow books always catch my eye for some reason. Like, I always end up buying yellow books, you know, sometimes. Like, so it's one of those books that are just yellow and it catches your attention. So yeah, I read it and I started, you know, I mean, I picked it up and I started reading description and everything. I think I found it when I was looking for some Murakami books because I want to read more of his work too at some point. And I actually bought one of his books, which I also want to read soon. Um, but yeah, while I was looking at that, I saw this book, and because it's Japanese, it's in the same section. So yeah. And one thing I really like about Asian, writing is like it's very meaningful. Like it's easy to follow, but there's so much depth and so much meaning behind all the words and all the stories. And it's like sometimes it's really ambiguous and it makes you think, and like you have to actually think to kind of understand and put things in place a little bit. And I really like that about, the writing. It's the same thing with Han Kang's books and Haruki Murakami. So I think I just have a thing for, Asian books at the moment. So yeah, I definitely want to read this book. And the last one I'm gonna try and fit in is it's called Reamdy and it's by Neil Stevenson. Now, Neil Stevenson is a sci-fi writer and he's known for writing very, very technical books. Like there's a lot of description, a lot of philosophy in his writing. So they're very dense. Like some people like will read his books and just check out after a while because they're so dense, and you have to really have a taste for that kind of storytelling and that kind of writing to really stick with it. But I keep hearing outstanding reviews for all of his work. I have read one of his books before called Snow Crash, which ironically is also about a hacker. It's more of a parody kind of book. It's making fun of like other cyberpunk books and stuff, like the Neuromancer. It kind of like makes fun of that a little bit. Um, but even that is kind of dense, So yeah, he's known for having very dense books, and they're also very long. This book is like 1,000 pages, so I'm wondering if I'm actually going to be able to get through it. I hope I am. I've read a lot of reviews about it, and people say that it's one of his easier to get through books, even though it is so long. And basically, it's a ransom story. Basically, like somebody gets kidnapped, and it basically shows the the different people involved with the rescue mission, trying to get the person who was being captured back and everything. And somehow through that, it involves a VR game and like a VR MMO game, and just a lot of other technical stuff, and also like a lot of espionage and Russian mafia and things like that. Somehow, all of this fits into the story. So I really my curiosity got the better of me, and because I want to read more sci-fi anyway, I figured I'll check this out. So I'm gonna check it. I'm gonna start reading it. I'll probably give it like 100 pages, and if it grips me, I'm gonna continue with it. If it doesn't, then I might end up, dropping it because it's 1,000 pages, and there's like I could fit in so many more books in that time. I don't want to drop it because I hate quitting books, but we'll see how it goes.
A lot of pages.
Yeah, a lot, definitely a lot. But I mean, The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest, that was a long book too. I think that was like 900 pages or something. So, and I kind of flew through. Well, I didn't fly through it. It took me like about a month, um, but yeah, I mean, I got through it, so it was good. So we'll see how it goes. But hopefully, I can get through that. But yeah, those are 4 books that I want to read. So we'll see how that goes.
That's really amazing. You and your hackers, though. You love your sci-fi and your hackers.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I think at different times of the year, I'm into different things. So this year just happens to be hackers, at this time of the year. Sometimes I'm really heavily into fantasy. Sometimes I'm heavy into mysteries. Sometimes I'm heavy into crime books. It just depends. Like, I have different book moods.
So what you're saying is that you're secretly in love with romance novels, and next year that'll be your big thing.
I mean, maybe, who knows? I mean, probably not, but I mean, who knows? You never know. I mean, maybe I'll get into Amish books.
Ha ha ha. Well, you got one now. I gave you one.
Yep, that you did.
Oh man, yeah. Don't knock the Amish, man.
I'll give it a try. I'll see how it is.
Don't knock the Amish, and also it's a weird story. There is this author named Quan Mills who I'm obsessed about. It's only on like ebook form because it's like I think he's independent and it's ridiculous. So one of the things that makes him stand out very much is his titles for his books. And they are considered urban. They're very urban. But what is hilarious is that he writes about these very serious issues and very serious topics, but he makes them in a very funny type of way. Where, for example, there is this one book called "This." Do I have to censor myself? This bee has roaches in her apartment, but it's spelled out with the full B word. Um, and it's actually about what it's like, growing up in the projects and how this father is trying to get custody of his child, but the mother is just very angry and ignorant and is purposely using the child against him. And this is kind of like it, so that's what's going on at the same time. But meanwhile, the roaches part is that there's a roach infestation in her house, and it also shows this weird thing how the roaches are trying to survive, in these projects. So maybe that could be one of your thing as well.
Wow, that sounds very complex and very weird at the same time. I don't know.
And it's like you have to see the title, and you see the title, and then you see the cover where it's just like this man is like yelling at this woman who's like really kind of ratchet looking, a baby in the corner, and there's roaches on the cover.
Okay.
It's yeah, that's yeah.
You have to keep me updated about this book.
It's a very good book. I know that it's like this doesn't make any sense, but I'm telling you, it doesn't make any sense. And the fact that it's an actually very good book. Like he writes very like he grips you with his writing. So yeah. Oh, and by the way, it's called This Hoe Got Roaches in Her Apartment. So it's not big.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's an episodic novel where like it's like she has the roaches in her apartment, and then the next book is like she still has roaches in her apartment, and now it's bed bugs.
Where do you find these books?
Instagram is a very weird, dark hole. Yeah. So yeah, and then he writes books, for example, the coldest summer ever. So how we went from winter, now it's the coldest summer ever, and Ugly Hole Dreams, and Thought Tiana.
So his books are parodies, like they're parodies.
They're parodies. Of course, it's considered urban fiction, but they're very unique in how it's written. So it just, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so maybe that can be your craze in the future.
Maybe I'm weirdly intrigued about it, so I might have to give it a try.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like I'm telling you, like if I was to show you the cover, you're like, no, I don't want to read that. But then I describe and I break it down to you about how it's actually very different and very good. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. But the hose and the roaches in the apartment is a trilogy, by the way.